instead be concentrating on finding the killer. The grieving performance seemed fairly convincing. But just 3 hours after the interview ended, Hong Yan secretly used an anonymous account to plane ticket to China for the near future. He also ordered 2 large 28-inch suitcases online and had them shipped directly to his laboratory address, presumably to avoid detection. On the morning of May 31st, security cameras at a bank in Boston's Chinatown captured footage of Hong Yan entering the bank and completing a cash withdrawal of $150,000. After receiving the money, he stuffed the entire sum into the backpack he was carrying and quickly left. These were clearly the actions of someone urgently preparing to flee. But Hong Yan had no idea that while he was frantically preparing his escape plan, the police weren't sitting idle either. They had obtained approval for a total of 15 search warrants. Piece by piece, the evidence was being collected and connected. GPS location data from vehicles, forensic evidence gathered from the scene and the victim's body, and electronic records including internet search history and financial transactions. Everything was weaving together into an inescapable net. In the early morning of June 5th, Hong Yan appeared at the airport with 2 large suitcases, preparing to pass through security and board a flight out of the United States. But the moment he reached the security checkpoint, a group of plainclothes officers suddenly converged and arrested him on the spot. The husband who had painstakingly constructed his grief-stricken performance, who had tried so hard to disguise himself over the past several days, could finally hide no longer. No one could have guessed that the bloody tragedy had begun as a fairy tale romance that many had admired and envied. Looking at the personal profiles of Hong Yan and Kai Shen, their achievements surpassed 90% of their peers. Hong Yan was born in 1969 in Harbin and grew up in an intellectual family with a tradition of scholarly excellence. At 18, he was admitted to Peking University's space physics program. This achievement made him the most celebrated student from Harbin number 3 high school that year. After completing his master's degree at Peking University in 1995, Hong Yan received a full scholarship to continue his studies in the United States. There, he earned 2 more degrees, a master's in computer science and a PhD in mathematical physics. His doctoral dissertation was highly regarded in academic circles, cited by professors from prestigious universities, and received the Outstanding Dissertation Award from the American Physical Society in 2001. His career continued to flourish. In 2016, he joined Joohoney Holdings and was appointed director of the Financial Innovation Laboratory. There, he led research and development of systems utilizing artificial intelligence, a pioneering field in high-tech finance. According to Joohoney Holdings' 2017 financial report, his annual salary reached $520,000, and he also held 0.8% of the company's shares. In September 2017, Hongyan represented the company in signing a cooperation agreement with Harvard University's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, marking a significant milestone in his career. His name appeared multiple times in the Wall Street Journal's technology section, and within professional circles, he was hailed as one of the top Chinese elites in AI finance. As for Kai Shen, she was no less accomplished than the man who would become her husband. Born in 1970 in Xi'an, one of China's historic ancient capitals, she was admitted to the Beijing College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in 1989, now known as Beijing University of Chinese Medicine, majoring in traditional Chinese medicine. After graduating in 1993, she began her career at Shanghai Pharmaceutical Group as a basic sales representative. Through ability and relentless effort, she rose through the ranks to eventually become the company's marketing director. In 2005, Kai Shen moved to Danone Group's China division as marketing director. It was there that she left her most memorable mark. The marketing campaign she led for Mazone vitamin drinks in East China created a dramatic turnaround. Between 2008 and 2010, Mazone's market share in the East China region jumped from 12% to 35%, nearly tripling in just 2 years. This campaign transformed what had been a minor, little-known beverage product into a nationally recognized brand, beloved by consumers everywhere. Not content with professional success alone, in 2012, Kai Shen invested in herself by paying 280,000 yuan out of pocket to enroll in the EMBA program at the China-Europe International Business School, one of the most prestigious business education programs in Asia. Her classmates were mostly successful corporate executives or renowned entrepreneurs. According to her EMBA classmates, Kai Shen had an open and cheerful personality with a decisive and efficient work style. Whenever the class had activities, she was always the one who stepped up to organize and coordinate, which made her well-liked by everyone. Before meeting Hongyan, Kai Shen had already been through one marriage. However, due to incompatible personalities, they divorced. From then on, she shouldered the responsibility of raising her daughter alone without relying on anyone. By 2013, her annual salary had reached 1.2 million yuan, and she owned 2 apartments in Shanghai. She was living the powerful female protagonist life that countless women dreamed of. Successful in her career, financially independent, and confident in life. In October 2013, at a China-Europe International Business School alumni gathering in Shanghai, a mutual friend introduced Kai Shen and Hongyan.
Perfect ang CDO ulam burger. Legit na lutong bahay pero with resto-style CDO burger, mas...
Good morning. Malamig.
At that time, Hongyan had also recently gone through a divorce. The previous year, he and his ex-wife had decided to end their 10-year marriage due to too many differences in their outlook on life. Their son was placed in the ex-wife's custody. Perhaps because both were in similar circumstances, they quickly found common ground. Their educational backgrounds were remarkably similar. Both were accomplished in their respective fields. They shared the experience of a failed marriage and were rebuilding their lives. Most importantly, both harbored plans to develop their careers and lives abroad. All these commonalities drew Kai Shen and Hongyan close together, and they began a romantic relationship. During Chinese New Year 2014, Hongyan invited Kai Shen to the United States to celebrate the holiday together. During this trip, he showed her his apartment in Boston and the state-of-the-art laboratory where he worked. The impression from that trip must have been very positive, because Kai Shen later wrote in an email to her close friend, "He looks quite dignified and mature with strong academic abilities. Being with him gives me a sense of security. Moreover, he can help me and my daughter apply for U.S. residency." These words reveal how much hope and trust Kai Shen placed in this man at the time.
You're pretty.
Things
How
moved
old?
quickly after that.
Eyes will.
In March 2015, Hongyan officially completed his U.S. naturalization process. Just 3 months later, in June of the same year, Kai Shen gave up everything she had built in Shanghai and brought her daughter to settle in Boston with Hongyan. Together, they purchased a 2,800 square foot single family home in Lexington for $820,000. The first year after marriage, their life could be called the ideal model of an exemplary couple. At the Lantern Festival celebration hosted by Boston's Chinese community in 2016, Hongyan took the stage as a sponsor representative to give a speech. In the audience below, Kai Shen wore a perfectly tailored qipao, gazing up at the stage with pride in her eyes, occasionally breaking into a happy smile. Neighbors in the area often spotted the family's picture-perfect image on weekends, when both would take Kai Shen's daughter to the supermarket for shopping. On these occasions, Hongyan always took the initiative to carry the heaviest bags. The president of the Lexington Chinese Association later recalled, "At that time, everyone in the community admired them. Everyone felt this was truly an elite marriage. Two talented people coming together to create synergy. That seemingly perfect dream didn't last long." In the summer
So,
of 2016,
any question?
Kai Shen discovered the first knot in her marriage, and that's when the cracks began to appear. One day while cleaning the living room, she happened to notice something small hidden in a gap near the chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Curious, she reached up to retrieve it, and was stunned to discover it was a tiny camera cleverly disguised. Kai Shen immediately confronted Hongyan about this. He simply explained it was just a security measure for the family. Nothing to worry about. But what happened next made Kai Shen increasingly uneasy and frightened. She discovered that someone had secretly installed location tracking software on her phone, and some settings had been modified without her knowledge. This meant Hongyan could know her exact location at any time of day. Whenever Kai Shen attended church activities or met with friends, every half hour or so, Hongyan would text asking when she'd be home, what she was doing, who she was with. Sometimes he even demanded she take photos of her location as proof. One day in March 2017, Kai Shen attended a women's book club meeting organized by her church. The session ran longer than expected, making her late getting home. When she pushed open the door, her suitcase had been pulled out and placed in the middle of the foyer. Hongyan sat on the living room sofa, his face expressionless and cold as ice, dropping a single sentence.
I buy
"If you
lipstick.
don't want to come home, then don't live here anymore." Just for being an hour late, she was treated as if she were unwelcome in her own home. It was then that Kai Shen realized the bitter truth. The house they had bought together had somehow become Hongyan's private prison. In that prison, Kai Shen didn't even have the right to be slightly late. The control didn't stop at monitoring her time and movements. Hongyan's financial control suffocated Kai Shen until she could barely breathe. In May 2017, Hongyan used the excuse that their marital assets needed unified management for easier tracking and investment, then unilaterally transferred all $1.2 million from their joint account to a Swiss bank account under his name alone. Of that sum, $600,000 came from Kai Shen's sale of her 2 Shanghai apartments before coming to America. After that, Hongyan canceled the supplementary credit card Kai Shen had been using, leaving her with virtually no independent spending ability. Every expense, large or small, required his permission. Even when Kai Shen wanted to sign her daughter up for a summer course at the Boston Academy of Arts, she had to ask Hongyan for money, and he interrogated her in detail about exactly how each dollar would be spent. Kai Shen's daughter later testified in court about that painful period. During that time, Mom would often hide alone in the bedroom crying. Once she confided in me that my stepfather thought we were spending his money, but Mom clearly had her own savings. But what frightened Kai Shen most, what kept her from fighting back or standing up for her rights, was his control over her immigration status. Her U.S. green card had been obtained through her marriage to Hongyan, valid from 2015 to 2020, and according to regulations, she needed to file for renewal in 2018. This meant her right to remain in America depended heavily on her husband's cooperation. In October 2017, Kai Shen boldly told Hongyan she wanted to find a job and earn her own income. He immediately flew into a rage. Not only did he flatly refuse, but he issued chilling threats. "If you dare get a job, I won't cooperate with renewing your green card. Then you and your daughter will both be deported back to China. Your daughter's dream of getting into Boston University will turn to nothing. These threats hit Kai-Shen like a bucket of ice water, making her understand clearly that she was trapped with no way out. Under such increasingly oppressive control, Kai-Shen began secretly planning her escape from this hellish marriage. But she had no idea that Hongyan's counterattack would be far more ruthless and brutal than she could have imagined. In July 2018, after careful consideration, Kai-Shen secretly contacted a Chinese-American law firm in Boston for legal consultation and assistance. She formally filed for divorce, beginning what would be a grueling legal battle. In her divorce petition, she clearly stated her circumstances. After marriage, I endured long-term psychological abuse and financial control. The marital relationship has completely broken down with no possibility of reconciliation. She requested that the court fairly divide their joint assets, including the Lexington home, bank deposits, and Hongyan's company shares. She also requested custody of her daughter. The moment Hongyan learned of this, he launched a powerful counterattack. He quickly hired a top Boston divorce legal team, specialists in handling complex divorces for elites and the wealthy, at $800 per hour. Their strategy was clear and rather cruel. They argued that since coming to America, Kai-Shen had never worked and had no economic income whatsoever. Therefore, she should receive very little or even no assets from the marriage. Simultaneously with preparing for the legal battle, Hongyan quietly accelerated transferring assets to avoid division in the divorce. In August 2018, he transferred the Mercedes E-Class company car to his older sister's name. In September, he used the pretext of company property to move 3 high-end servers used for AI model development from the laboratory to a warehouse he controlled. In October, he opened a new Swiss bank account, transferred $800,000 from the old account, and registered it under his name from his previous marriage. Beyond hiding assets, Hongyan found every way to delay the divorce proceedings and create obstacles for his wife. He secretly hid Kai-Shen's passport, green card, and all her immigration documents, making it impossible for her to complete any legal procedures related to her residency status. The consequences came in January 2019, when Kai-Shen, unable to obtain her original green card, missed the deadline to submit her daughter's Boston University application. Overcome with frustration and anger, mother and daughter had a major argument with Hongyan about this. In his uncontrolled fury, he smashed Kai-Shen's laptop. That laptop had contained all the evidence she had painstakingly collected to prove she was a victim of domestic violence. Now, everything was gone. By this point, Kai-Shen felt utterly desperate,
Good
as if
morning.
backed into a corner with no escape. She clearly understood Hongyan's sinister intentions. He was deliberately dragging everything out until her green card expired in 2020. At that point, without legal residency status, she and her daughter would be deported from America with nowhere to go. Though cornered, Kai-Shen decided to make one final effort. In May 2019, she changed lawyers, finding Robert Kim, an attorney specializing in protecting domestic violence victims. After hearing Kai-Shen's situation, Attorney Kim reminded her that the most important thing was to quickly supplement and strengthen her evidence. He explained that surveillance videos, recorded conversations, bank statements showing abnormal transfers, all of these could become powerful legal weapons to help her gain more rights in the asset division and prove she was a victim. During this time, Kai-Shen also began to vaguely sense she was facing real danger, no longer just empty threats. On May 12th, she went to the Chinese church for her regular prayers. During the break between services, she sought out the pastor and confided her worries. Lately, I've felt something isn't right with Hongyan. The way he looks at me is very strange, very frightening. He even told me that no one can escape from him. As if sensing something ominous, Kai-Shen instructed the pastor, "If I suddenly disappear one day, please remember, it will definitely be Hongyan, no one else. Please look after my daughter more when that happens." The pastor later told police another important detail. During that meeting, Kai-Shen gave him a USB drive to hold for safekeeping. She said it contained evidence of Hongyan secretly installing cameras to monitor her, along with recordings of his threats. On May 25th, Kai Shen met her close friend at a small cafe in Boston's Chinatown. This friend was the woman who would later discover her body. During that meeting, Kai Shen handed her friend a small piece of paper with Attorney Kim's contact information and the password to her personal bank account. She instructed her friend solemnly, "If you don't hear from me within 3 days, find Attorney Kim immediately. He'll know what to do." Additionally, Kai Shen mentioned a notable detail. Hongyan had recently been packing his personal belongings, apparently preparing to move out. On the morning of May 27th, Kai Shen sent a WeChat message to Attorney Kim. In it, he noted that the previous day, when the couple sat down to discuss asset division, Hongyan had declared bluntly that he wouldn't let her take a single cent. At most, they would both end up with nothing, like fish dying in a torn net. Kai Shen said she felt extremely frightened by his aggressive and determined attitude. After reading the message, replied, telling her to come to his office the next day to organize and sort through the evidence they had collected. He also tried to comfort and encourage her not to worry too much. There would be a solution. But Attorney Kim couldn't have known this would be his last communication with his client. The prolonged, intense marriage.
Ay ko, sampay tayo natin. Ako'y busog. Thank you, Lord. Ako'y busog. Ay ko. Kailangan na kumain ng kumain.